Bring the ship up to broadcast depth. We're going in.
Happy Wednesday. Welcome to another installment of Rollo Tomassi's The Rational Male. That's my radio voice. Talking about women dehumanizing other women today. What's wrong with women today? Everybody wants to know that, right? Everybody keeps asking that. That's a hot topic on YouTube. Here we go. All right then. And that's the end of what I'm calling the grunge intro. I don't know. I thought maybe that had like sort of an Alice in Chains feel to it. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little weird. How you guys doing? How's it going? If you have been following my Twitter feed, you'll get that I'm coming a little bit hot today. A series of events that I had to take care of like immediately before this. Everything that could go wrong this morning for me pretty much went wrong. Well, I guess right after my dog walking, running, I should say. I do. People want to say, "Yeah, well, Rollo, what kind of workout do you do? What kind of physical stuff?" I will in no way ever claim to be like sort of a fitness expert. I do a max OT workout. I've been doing that for a while as far as strength training is concerned. I think that's a Jay Cutler thing. I'm not really sure what the old school bodybuilder guy. I'm doing that for a while. I know what my body works well with, I guess. And then because of COVID and because I also got a brand new 2-year-old greyhound, I do a lot of cardio. And I mean like every day I do cardio. So I've been breaking in my, if I look a little more tan, it's because I've been out in the sunshine twice a day, actually, in the morning and in the afternoon, because that's the kind of pets I have. So, but yeah, right after that, man, I mean, just a lot of weird things are afoot. If you are looking to purchase The Rational Male on Kindle right now, you might have a little difficulty doing that because I had to spend a good portion of this morning sort of going through some corrections and some things that got it suspended today. I'm not going to tell you what my suspicions are because I can't confirm any of them, but I have addressed all of those issues and I took care of them right before this show. So that's all taken care of right now. So if you're wanting to purchase the Kindle version, and probably most of you have already purchased the Kindle version, or if you want to send your friends, I tell you what's funny is I get a lot of people who say, "Hey, Rollo," I'll be in a Twitter feed or a Twitter chat, and somebody will say, "You really need to read The Rational Male," and they'll explain why, and then they'll tag me in it, right? Like at Rollo Tomassi or at Rational Male, and then the next thing the guy says is, "Where can I get a copy of it? Can you give me a PDF of it?" And another guy goes, "Yeah, sure. Here, I'll give you." I'm like, dude, I'm in the chat. Can you, if you're going to pirate my stuff, can you at least pretend I'm like not here? So that was pretty funny. But getting as an author, I think that's, or a musician, actually, even if you like create any kind of digital content, your stuff's going to get pirated somehow, some way. I've had people make me aware that there are certain threads on Reddit right now where they're encouraging people to download my book via torrent. So I must have made the big time. People tell me that that's actually good advertising because the book is so good that people feel bad about having like picked it up for free. And it's really, what's it going to set you back? Like $9? Okay. If you need it, if you can't afford $9 and you really need it that bad, be my guest. It's all yours. So anyways, I got a couple of things that I need to talk about right before we get into it. I want to let you guys know what the topic is today. I was made aware of this video by a blogger or vlogger, I guess, and her name is Rachel Oates. And let me, I forget who gave this to me. I think somebody on Facebook tossed this my way. Her name is Rachel Oates. Oops, so if you sorry, that's her. She describes herself as atheist, science fanatic, feminist, LGBT advocate, and dog lover. So let's see. Well, first of all, I'm not an atheist. I am a science fanatic. I am not a feminist, as you all know. LGBT, I'm kind of, let's just say I'm not an endorser of it. Advocate, I don't know what that. Oh, advocate, and then dog lover. Well, at least we have that in common. So we're gonna sort of dissect this new video. I've seen some other guys talking about it. But I had a lot of people asking me, hey, can you do a deconstruction of this? And I haven't done like a case study in a long time. I think the last one I did was back in November or October. I think when I was on with I was on with Ryan and Rich, and we were talking about like the pinnacle of a man. It was the episode where we were talking about like what's wrong with the red pill. And when I get certain videos thrown at me, I usually have to kind of, like people really, oh, can you do this one? Can you do this one? Can you do that one? And I'm like, well, if it's something that I can really sort of sink my teeth into and people can learn something from it, then I'm happy to do it. Like when I did people think that like when I do deconstructions where I pick something apart, I've done these with John from Modern Life Dating as well. But when I do it, people tend to think that I am doing this because I'm doing a takedown. I'm going to take this guy down. It's like, that's not what I'm doing. I mean, in a way, I guess people will say, well, you're criticizing this guy. Well, but every time I do a breakdown or a deconstruction or a case, I don't even like to say, oh, he destroyed you. Now, it's not team sports, dude. The only reason I do these things is so that you guys can learn something. I hope that's the purpose. That's what I envision anyways, is that you guys will get something out of this and not just be like, oh man, he really destroyed that dude. I'm not into YouTube blood sports. So I wanted to say that from the outset here before I dig into this young lady's video. And I do mean young. But this has been making the rounds, I guess, in the manosphere, MGTOW or black pill, red pill, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to use manosphere as just a catch-all thing right now. But before I do, I have to address this as well. Let's bring it down a little bit. In damn near every one of the videos I have done, really since about February, people in the chat and then people in the comments ask a lot of questions about what's going on with Pat Campbell. And I held off. I respected his wishes. I respected everything. I'm like, it's cool. Just, we'll just sort of, play it by ear till you're ready. Or if not, then that's fine too. But, I was privy to some of the things, some of his health issues, and he's sort of come out and said, has, I don't want to say come clean, but he's detailed these things in just like about a 10 or 12 minute bit that he did on his show, and then he put it up on Facebook so that people can sort of understand what he's going through. So as you guys know, he had an accident. If you really want to get into the details of it, again, I put the link, by the way, in the chat. I'll put it again in the description. So if you guys are still want to know what Pat's conditions are, you can actually just go talk to Pat. He's totally cool with it. But essentially it's this, is he had an accident. They discovered brain tumors. They removed the brain tumors. And I'm not going to tell you how I know, but I knew that the brain tumors were at least malignant. And I didn't want to like sort of divulge resources or sources or anything like that, because I wanted to respect his privacy and everything else that's going on with him. I was concerned. I'm worried about him. I love him like a brother. As you guys know, I've been working with Pat for since the late 2017. Gosh, I think it was like December of 2017 that I first went on his show. And then later I was a permanent installment on his Friday shows. And it was weird to me to go from like I usually would get up at like 4 a.m. because his show is in a different time zone than mine. And so it was like 4 a.m. every Friday was sort of my ritual to go talk to Pat, and I would be doing notes and everything. And he and I hit, I feel like we hit it off. He and I were very, I don't know, we clicked. Let's just say that. And Pat is very intense, and he will say, that's the first thing he'll say is he's very intense. And when you meet him, if you talk to him, is very intense. He's a no BS kind of guy. And I respect him for it, and I love him for that. So I was really concerned when I didn't hear from him, because he was supposed to come on my Sunday show, and I didn't hear anything, and I started to get worried. And then for the first time, I think in my knowing Pat, his wife texts me and says he's in the ICU and he's out right now, and we're sort of seeing how things go. So later on, we discover that, or he discovers that it's cancerous, and he has had a series of, he's just got through, like, I think, according to his last radio announcement, I guess, he's gone through, I think, 6 weeks of chemo, radiation therapy. So, but he's back on top, and I hope things work out for him. I really do, because I love Pat. And I've had friends go through cancer before. If you look at my old posts from like around 2016, 2017, I was very active in trying to help another friend of mine out, who was another musician that I knew. His name was Jess, and he had to go through chemo twice, and he beat it. And it's not impossible to beat. And I'm happy to say that he's on top of his game. But getting cancer sort of puts the fear of God into you, and it really changes who you are. I've seen it. I saw it happen in Jess, and now I'm kind of seeing the same sort of revelation happen in Pat. So that's where Pat's at right now. I don't want to bring the mood down too much today, but I know that a lot of guys have been asking me about what's going on with Pat, and I think I'm not being cagey. I'm just trying to be private and let him say what he wants to say when he's ready to say it. So that's the story of Pat right now. So if you want to listen to that, like I said, I put it in the chat. I'll put it later in the description so you guys can figure what's going on with him. So let's get on to today's show. Today I'm going to be talking about, like I said, this young lady called Rachel Oates. Now, somebody told me, and I don't know if this is true, it could be, but this might be the girlfriend of Stephen Woodford from Rationality Rules. I'm not really sure. I don't know if that's the case, but or maybe he follows her or something like that. I don't know if they're in some way connected, but I'm not going to talk about her personally today. Okay. Like, you guys can decide for yourself whatever it is that you want to, like. My point of today's show is not to like bring anybody down. It is to talk about certain particulars of what I was seeing in this, this breakdown video. So here we go. She had done this thing, and her video was titled MGTOW, Dehumanizing Women. And when I watched this, and I sort of pick my way through it, there's a lot of typical rationales going on in this, and you, as we go through this, you will understand what I'm talking about. But there's a lot of typical female feminists, feminine imperative rationales that are that just naturally kind of bubble up to the surface with her. And I think that the thing that got me the most about this is just looking at her face, she can't be more than maybe in her early 20s. Maybe she's even a teenager. I'm not really even sure. But it sort of reminded me of the fact that this kind of stuff, like when we talk about the feminine imperative, when we talk about the kind of socialization that I talk about with respect to like behavioral conditioning, when we talk about the blue pill versus the red pill, when I talk about the blue pill, I always say it's blue pill conditioning. And I've also said in the past that women have their own form of blue pill conditioning, and everybody says, well, that's feminism. Yeah, it is, but it's more than just that. It's more than just oh, I read Gloria Steinem or Our Bodies Ourselves, or what. It's that women don't even read that. They don't realize that they are subjected to that. And so, if you look at the description here, she's like, these MGTOW, incel, WGTOW, I don't know, WGTOW, radfem posts on Tumblr remind me of why we need feminism. Egalitarianism so much, right? Why can't people just be treated like people? We're going to talk about that here in just a second, but there's today's show is going to be like red pill potpourri. It's like a little of this is going to be like, we're going to have a smorgasbord, I guess that's how you go, of red pill, truths here. Today's show has everything. So we're going to get into that. Also, I should say that if you have questions about this, or if you're giving today, I'm gonna make an exception. I'm not taking super chats. I'm not going to answer super chat questions until after I've finished what I'm doing, and then you can ask these things, because I want it. If I don't, this show will take 3 hours. So let's if you have questions, I'm always happy to have supers. That's really the only way that I get monetized, because pretty much everything I have, particularly these days, is becoming demonetized. So I do this because I want to do this, not because I have to do this, but it's always appreciated. Anyways, if I don't get to your super, there's a possibility I probably won't in this show. Email it to me. Let me know what it was, and I'll be happy to give you a quick hit email response to it. So without further ado, let's have a look at my new friend, Rachel Oates. I don't know if maybe she remember the Wild Oats project from about like 2015. All right, here we go. Can you guys see this? Yes, you can. I'm going to take my ugly mug out of here so you guys can see the whole thing. Well, actually, let me not do that. Let me just put me back in here. Can you guys see that okay? I think you can. All right. So let's see. I'm going to start it here. And then what I'm going to do is just sort of start and stop this thing so we can just sort of pick apart a few things here. So let's dive right in.
That I think might make a few people angry if my incels video is anything to go by. I made the mistake of looking at the MGTOW tag on Tumblr, which is like men going their own way. It's like anti-feminism, but to the extreme, because this is like men who think, they don't need women and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we're not sexist, but stuff like that. It was a very weird tag to look at, because not only was there lots of this like anti-women stuff, there were also a lot of posts by incels, and there were also a lot of posts by feminists and also radical feminists who hate men. So it was kind of like everyone was just angry at everyone, and it wasn't a very pleasant place to be. But today, mostly for a giggle, we're going to be looking at some of the posts that were tagged like hashtag MGTOW or MGTOW, however you want to say it. And kind of we're going to be having a look at this, having a little bit of a giggle about it, probably making some people angry, so sorry in advance for that. I do want this to be a lighthearted video, but I don't want to just like make fun of these people. But at the same time, I feel that like some of the things they come out with are so ridiculous that like you just kind of have to make a joke out of it, otherwise it's terrifying, I don't know. Anyway, well, let's look at some of these posts. There's not too many. And have a little chat about them, and then we'll just see what happens. First up, I found this MGTOW blog that has quite a lot of posts. We're going to be looking at a few from it. I thought maybe it was satire at first, but then the more I read, like just the sheer volume of it was like, no, I think this guy's serious, which was a little bit upsetting. Modernity has shown us how women act when they get a license to behave any way they want. They cover their bodies in tattoos. They sleep with 1,000 chads. They date criminals and give birth to their children. They abort their babies. They drink alcohol like they are men. They wear skimpy clothing. And they smoke like chimneys. Absolutely vile.
All right, I'm going to hold right there for 1 second. All right, so she's starting out with I want to say a variety of MGTOW, which is, to me, sounds like it's very, I don't say vindictive, but it's very simplistic. And I think a lot of when women see MGTOW stuff like that, they don't want to dig any deeper. It seems, because remember, when women are like coming into contact with the red pill, and I'm not even really going to say MGTOW at this point, but when they come into contact with the red pill, or a red pill concept, remember this, that when women interpret the red pill, they are doing so through an emotional lens, not through a rational lens. As I've said before, there is instinct, emotion, and reason. And that's usually the primary way that all human beings really interpret their surroundings, through instinctual process, through an emotional process, and through a rational process. For men, it tends to be instinct, reason, and then emotion. For women, the proclivity is instinct, emotion, and then reason. So you have to look at these things. And when I read something like that, it seems like that post that she's going to quote from here in just a moment is also an emotional response. So you're looking at an emotional guy being an emotional response to an emotional advancement or a premise, let's just say. So when a guy says something, oh, well, look at what they do. They sleep with 1,000 chads. They do this, they do that. It sounds like typical. I don't even tag this on MGTOW. This sounds like a typical incel fare, let's just say. And so when I read stuff like this, I also have to sort of filter it through a red pill lens. Like, why is this guy so pissed off? Why is this guy even putting this out there? And it seems like, particularly if that's all you get, if you just get 240, I think this is a Twitter's post. If you just get a few, characters, or you don't really understand what's going on with how did they come to those conclusions, and you don't have any interest or any personal interest to get it, you're just going to have a lot of confusion. And that's where she's going to go with this. So let's keep going.
Well, as a woman with a license to do whatever I want.
Okay. So there's premise number one. Whenever women want to establish a universal, whenever something is offensive to one woman, it is always offensive to all women. Because women see the world through I've talked about solipsism before, they see the world through how that world affects them. When a woman writes or says something like, as a woman, and then of course she says, with complete 100% autonomy and freedom of choice, added in for good measure. When you hear that, what that is that's pretty much the voice of solipsism right there. Because what happens is when women interpret things that are unflattering to the feminine nature, the first thing they have to do is resort to the sisterhood. And that sisterhood is appealed to through the experience, through the solipsistic experience of that woman. So what that means is this, in English, what that means is that women tend to personalize things. They take things very, they believe that if it affects them, and this is the way that they interpret it, every woman on planet Earth refers to it and interprets it themselves. And then what happens is, as they process that, they feel that the rebuttal needs to be as one representative. It's like e pluribus unum, right? One amongst many, like amongst many one, right? That's the sisterhood uber alles. And so the sisterhood uber alles is like, above all, as a woman, I am a representative of womankind, and therefore this is the universal, the cosmic universal for womankind. So let me tell you how this works. And what's funny is you would never hear a guy talk like that. You would never hear, well, as a man, let me tell you something, right? You don't get, unless you're like getting into like very specific gender issues, very few men begin a sentence with as a man. So let that sink in for just a second. I'm going to let her continue here.
I don't actually do any of those things, but even if I did, it wouldn't be a bad thing.
Okay. So me. I don't do those things. I don't know too many that do, but I don't do those things. So again, interpreting that assertion that she just read from the MGTOW thing, asserting that this is me. And so when I read this is how I feel about this as a woman. So when the natural response to this is a personalized solipsistic response. So I don't do those things. So other women must not do. A majority of other women must not do those things as well. Now she'll clarify this here in just a second, but notice that this is the very first reflexive response. So when we talk about like people, I think some of the most contentious things that at least I talk about, and it's certainly in my first book, and then the third book, there's 2 chapters on solipsism in there, female specific solipsism. And I use the term solipsism very selectively here. I don't say narcissistic because a lot of guys will say, well, women are narcissistic and they're bitches and they, and all this other stuff. And they want to, they really like to use narcissist as sort of an invective. I use the term solipsistic because it's not necessarily, I'm trying to keep it as objective and as neutral as possible. Yes, a lot of women, particularly in this day and age, tend to cross the threshold, the Rubicon, as it were, from solipsism into narcissism. And it's very easy for women to do, particularly when they're young and pretty. So let's continue. I don't do these things. I. Listen to how I don't want to back it up, but whenever you read things like this, whenever you watch something, whether it's a response to this, look how quickly it's personalized. It's individualized to herself.
As long as the person isn't hurting other people, I don't see why it really matters. Like, how does it affect anyone else? How many people a woman sleeps with?
Okay, so, well, like I said, today's going to be the potpourri episode. So why does it make any difference how many men a woman has slept with? I've already done one show on that. In fact, I think at the end of this show, I'll make sure that I tag that video so you guys can see it. Well, what's interesting to me is she takes a personal offense to this, and most women will. When you say, well, they'll say, well, that's a double standard. We did this on Rule 0, right? Like we were talking about double standards. And as I said before, the only time women really bring up double standards is when they can't do something that they think that all men are doing. So if we are all blank slate equals, if men are men, or if men are the equal of women and women are the equal of men, then women should be able to go and have sex as much as they do, as much as they believe that the average guy is going and doing it. And first of all, we're different. That's what she doesn't get. And I don't expect a child of her age to get that. Now, I can quote you statistics, and there's going to be 100 guys in the comments and 100 guys in the chat right now are going to go, well, yeah, women who have higher notch counts have a higher incidence of divorce, or have and this is statistically true. I can show you the stats for this. It's CDC stats for this. That women who have above like a certain, like between like say, 7 and 10 partners, tend to have a much higher incidence of divorce, report a much higher incidence of marital unhappiness or discord, or however they break that down. There's a lot of downsides for female promiscuity with respect to human beings. And again, women are going to be promiscuous. Whether they are socially inhibited from that or not isn't the question. The thing is that there are downsides to that promiscuity that men do not have. So again, those same statistics, those same studies, we can see that for men, the sex act is something that we can dissociate ourselves from emotionally. So like I keep saying, in damn near every video, is that like when a guy is jerking off to porn, he can just go about his day and he doesn't feel any sort of emotional investment. He just got off and he goes back to work or does whatever he's doing. Maybe his head's cleared. Who knows? But that's why pornography is such a big deal for guys, because they have the capacity to do that. We have a natural, innate mental firmware that allows us to do that, because our reproductive strategy is different from women's. And for women who are looking for quality rather than quantity, the idea that there should be no consequences, or there should be as long as you're not hurting anybody, okay, fine. In a perfect vacuum, in a perfect world, I'm sure that would be a great rationale, but the stats don't back that up. Now, I can be real technical about this, and I can even talk to her and say, look, here's why you're wrong, and I can prove it to you. But again, I would be appealing to a woman's reason. And then second of all, she's interpreting, again, all of this through an emotional filter. So it's how she feels about it. And it's how she feels about it as modified by the blue pill conditioning that she's had since she was probably about 5 years old, from Disney and pop culture and music and maybe even probably a bit of college, I would say too. I don't know what else. But I can make those points, and the thing, what's funny is, like, MGTOWs will probably, and they probably did. I don't know where she's actually pulling all of this info from. But what will happen is guys will go, okay, here's the stats, and they'll show you all black and white numbers. And like I said, I can go pull the same numbers. I have them saved. In fact, I can show you the bar graphs of the incidence of divorce for women who have sex with, multiple partners over. And I'm just talking about 7 to 10. I'm not talking like 20s and 30s and whatever. But that doesn't make any difference. So I wanted to point this out for this particular part here, because this is the rationale. This is sort of the unconscious hindbrain that the instant reflex is what she's saying. And I don't want to just like, people will say, well, that's just her. No, that's a lot of women. That's particularly younger women, because they've been fed this. Now, I've said this before, and then I'll move on here in just a second, but I want to make this last point is that, like, I'll talk to a lot of tradcon women, or women who claim to be red pill women, right? Which I think is sort of an oxymoron, but they'll claim to be red pill women, and they say, well, I understand all this stuff, and I'm not a feminist, or I'm an anti-feminist, or Janice Fiamengo, she's an anti-feminist, or Christina Hoffsummer, Karen Strong, they will say that, oh, they're anti-feminist. But what my point has always been is that it doesn't matter if you call yourself, identifying as a feminist today is basically meaningless, because if you've been raised in a sort of westernizing culture since 1965, somewhere around there, feminist thought, feminist ideology has influenced you in some way. It has influenced culture. It has influenced academia. It has influenced religion. It has influenced politics. It has influenced everything. So to say, well, I don't identify as a feminist. Yeah, but you hold feminist ideals and you don't even realize that you do. You don't realize where they're coming from or how you learn them. It just seems like common sense to me. And in some cases, right? I mean, I'm not against women having the right to vote. There you go. What I'm against is women having the right to absolve themselves from responsibilities of the choices that they make. That's what I'm against. I also understand that like women are only going to vote in their own interests. And I think that the more men who know that will then adjust their own voting and adjust their own choices, let's say, according to that knowledge. That's where, and that's the dangerous part about the red pill, is it threatens that power control. So anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that because we got a little bit more to go on here. So let's keep going.
Or how much alcohol she drinks, unless, it's affecting her family and friends. And that's a whole other story. Yeah, I find it insane. I just feel like adults should be allowed to do what they want as long as they take responsibility for their own actions after.
Yeah, and that's the problem. This is the appeal to personal responsibility. And this isn't just from like sort of a liberal atheist feminist side of things. This is also from a tradcon side of things. People should take responsibility. They're all adults, so they should take responsibility for themselves, unless they're female. And then they have a lot of fail safes. They have a lot of ways out of that. But we don't see that because we pretend that women are in this like perpetual victim status. Feminism doesn't work if there's no victim status. So you can apply this to other things politically, ideologically, racially, whatever. I'm talking about particular to women at this point. When it comes to sort of women's suffrage, when it comes to women as a victimized underclass or being repressed or whatever, this is a never-ending self-perpetuating ideal that keeps it afloat. So let's keep going here, but I wanted to insert that about personal responsibility because it's a very slippery slope, but it's a very sort of sticky for women because they want to be like, she'll say, well, we've got to be personally responsible. Okay, well, but I will guarantee you as a feminist, she will fight tooth and nail for reproductive choice, right? For the right to abort a child. Well, are you taking responsibility for the child? Or are you taking responsibility for yourself? And what are the consequences of that? Are you being absolved for your reproductive decisions? Or are you paying the price, the consequences for those? Or are you expecting men to absolve you of those liabilities? That's really the next step in all of this. But again, here I am applying all of this rationally as I possibly can to really what amounts to an emotional argument.
Afterwards, if a woman wants to go around sleeping with 1,000 chads, that's absolutely fine, as long as she practices safe sex, and if she does get pregnant, she acts responsibly about it, and she gets.
And what would that responsibility entail, dear? Would that entail responsibly having an abortion about it, or responsibly where do you go from there? You will always dance around particulars like that. Now, you can go and show her, like I said, you can show her the stats, like I was saying before, but it's never going to have the kind of impact that like having this emotional reaction. One thing I think, and I wanted to put this out there as well, is, and I'll come back to this, is what I'm seeing right now, particularly in like Black pill communities, in MGTOW communities, that kind of stuff, spheres, if you want to just call it the sphere, is there's this sort of co-mutual, almost codependence on the indignation that they get a rise out of being able to say stuff, or being able to put that out there and seeing what women will respond to. And this is the response. So what happens is you get a woman like that, a young woman like this, who will read that. Now she's getting the indignation high from reading this and losing her mind about it. And then what happens is her reaction is then self-perpetuated by perpetuated by the reaction of the MGTOW community that says, "Hey, look at this! I can't believe this!" And so it never ends, and nobody gets educated. So after a while, you kind of go, "Okay, I'm wasting my time here." But like I said, there's a lot more to this. So let's keep going.
Gets regular tests and use condoms and whatever, and doesn't mess with anyone's feelings. I don't see why it's an issue. I just feel like as long as people are being responsible for their own actions and accepting the consequences of them, I don't really see why it matters. We shouldn't police other adults and their behavior. Not when it comes to—
Well, the problem with that is that the consequences that come as a result of that are all about the man and not about the woman. Even when you have a woman who has, let's say, slept with 1,000 chads, right? Or you've got a woman who gets to be into her epiphany phase, and now she's looking for absolution, right? She's looking for the guy who's going to be, oh, I need a good dependable guy and not the chads that I was sleeping with in my party years. Now I'm looking for so that guy is now responsible for the choices that she made as responsible and as thoughtful as she possibly could be during her party years. That guy is still going to have to pay the price or in some way absolve her of the consequences of those actions. And those aren't always clear. So, I mean, it's easy to say, well, if you're a 30-year-old guy or a 33-year-old guy, and which is why I keep saying, do not even consider monogamy until you get to that point and make sure that you are red pill aware. Why is the red pill so threatening? Because it tells those guys you don't have to be responsible for the choices that woman made during her party years. So while you are doing the right thing and building yourself up, you don't have to be the one. You do not have to feel a personal liability, a moral imperative, anything to support that woman's choices. If you want to, do so with your eyes wide open and you understand what you're getting yourself into. Most guys don't. Women want men who are sort of game ignorant, red pill ignorant when they get to be about that time, because if they're not ignorant, then they have to actually, guys will actually have to look at these women and say, well, is that something I want to get into? Rather than, oh, wow, my ship's come in. So it's not, and I should say this, is it's not as obvious. Usually it's not as obvious as a woman who has 3 kids from 2 different fathers and expects the beta in waiting at 30 years old to absolve her of her, reproductive choices by being a good supportive man with benefits. It's not as obvious as that. So if you got a woman who's, been with even just like 10 guys, that woman's going to have a higher incidence of divorce than a woman who's only got like 3 or 4 guys, right? So yes, in a sense, what she's saying is true. But the thing is guys don't usually see what those responsibilities are, what those liabilities are, or what the possibilities, statistically, what those possibilities are. Now, what she's going to do here, she's just about to blame this on what I call the, people are people, right? It's the fallacy of individuation. So let's get on to individuation here.
It's little things like whether they get tattoos or, whether they smoke or not. Yeah. The same blog released this like miniature essay of a post that says, women are not adults. And again, this is where I think it all comes from. So much of this like MGTOW stuff is about like belittling women and treating them like children and being like, hey, well, we don't want you to do this because you're
Okay, so this is an emotional response to something that has been very well. I can't speak for the MGTOWs who came up with this, okay? Because I think what happens is a lot of MGTOWs will read up on some of this stuff and they'll put out some very simplistic post or some very simplistic, blog or something like that, where they kind of enumerate all this stuff that has like been compiled by a lot of red pill guys, such as myself, that have come along before this. So there is this concept. And it's one I kind of had to warm up to after a while because I kind of see the validity in it. Again, jury's still out, but let me explain it to you. There's a concept that women are the most. I talked about this last week, right? The most responsible teenager in the house, and so that gets thrown into women are children. It's a lot like the oversimplification of like my own post when I say, was it Iron Rule of Tomassi number 6, where I say, women fundamentally lack the capacity to love a man in the way that he idealistically believes that she should be capable of loving him. They always like truncate that, let's say, down to, well, Rollo said that women can't love you. No, that's not what I said, asshat. What I said was they cannot love you in the idealistic way. They lack the capacity to understand you well enough or even care enough to understand how men love and how women love, because women don't care. They're more wrapped up in the emotional thing. They're more, remember, instinct, emotion, reason. So it's all about emotions. It's all about the romantic ideal. It's all about chivalry. It's all about courtly love. It's all about those crazy ideals that started way back in the day. And they don't even realize that that's the filter that they're putting it all through. And so what happens is guys says, well, if a woman can't love me the way I want to be loved, then they don't know how to love. Like I own love, men own love. And so that's the way it works. No, that's not the way it works. It's a lot more complex than that. And it takes a little bit more mental energy to really wrap your head around it. But you're simplifying it. And this is what she's reacting to here is a oversimplification of the idea that women are children. Women are children. No, they're not children. They do get to, like, women can very much be taught to be very rational and through programming and they're, adjusting their software, as I've said, can become it's not that they don't have a rational side. It's just their natural proclivity is to prioritize emotion before reason. It doesn't mean that you can't have a reasonable woman. It's just getting to that is the difficult part that most guys don't have the patience to deal with. So rather than do that, they go, oh, well, women are children. No, they're, and again, this is a theory that I'm not sure I 100% agree with, but there is an idea that there are different levels of emotional maturity. There are 6 levels. And I forget the guy who brought this up, but according to the guy who's doing the theory, he says women don't usually mature past, like, say, the 4th or the 5th level of emotional maturity, whereas men can, although we take longer to get there, we can get to like the 6th level of emotional maturity. And I don't know, I'm going to have to do a post about that. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research so I can speak a little bit more authoritatively on that. But that's the case. And so, but that's, again, I wanted to bring this out here because the whole thing about women are children kind of thing, there's an evolutionary principle that's underlying this. She's never going to get it, but I'll break it down here for you in just a second because I want her to continue with the rest of this. So before I do.
But this is like justifying all that behavior by saying, well, they're not adults anyway. Like, this is why we treat them like children. Adults take full responsibility for their negative actions. Women rarely do. Their first reaction is to deflect or blame someone else. I don't think that's the case. Yes, there are plenty of people out there who don't take responsibility for their actions, but we should criticize them as individuals, not just assume it's a whole gender thing. Okay,
that's the lie of individuation right there. And I deal with this all the freaking time. Like, women will say, well, you can't apply all of these. People are people. They're all individuals. You want to know where the term snowflake came from? That's where it comes from. We're all different. We're all special in our own way, right? We all don't look the same. We're not all the same genetic makeup. We're not all, and it's like, okay, yeah, but there are certain behavioral, biological, we're all human beings, right? I mean, there's got to be some kind of human nature. Like, we all get hungry. We all get horny. We all get aggravated. You know, whatever. There are certain, and it takes too long to do it, but we can go all the way down and we go, okay, do you get hungry? Yes, I do. Okay, well, that's part of human nature. Okay, do you get horny? Yes, I do. Okay, well, that's part of human nature. Okay. And then you can go all the way down to like the microscopic level, all the way up to, you know, what is women's nature, their innate proclivities versus what men's nature is. And this is where I keep talking about like evolved mental firmware. There are certain things about men. Men tend to be interested in things. Women tend to be interested in people. Whenever you say something like that, whenever you say there are gender differences, and those differences are biological, they're evolutionary, they're psychological, there are differences between men and women. The reaction to that, the reflexive response to that is always, well, we're all individuals. No. There are things that make us alike, and there are things that make us not alike. And it's not hard to wrap your head around that if you're not trying to deflect yourself. So there are, like when I said, if I were to say this, and I guarantee you, if I saw this girl on the street and we just struck up a conversation or whatever, and I said something to the effect of, well, you know, women are better at communication, and they outstrip men in understanding subcommunications and body language and vocal intonations and basically, you know, running down the list of all the things I've ever said about like the differences in communication styles between women. That's very flattering for women, and it should be, because it's good. It's a strength that women have. Great, awesome. And if I go and I say, well, men are naturally better at math, or men are naturally have a better, what is it, spatial abilities, right? We can huck a rock more accurately with our, you know, put our shoulders into it kind of thing. We can do that. If I say that, then I'm a sexist. Then I'm an asshat for saying something like that. But if I say something that's flattering about women, then it's okay. Then that difference is accepted. But if I go and I say, well, you know, okay, well, women have a greater capacity for empathy, or maybe they're better at, because of the communication, they have a better capacity for empathy, or they have this natural affinity. Like we look at fMRI scans of women, we see how the connections are different. We see how, like, wow, if we overlay a man's synaptic connections versus women's synaptic connections, they look pretty complementary, right? Seems like maybe we evolved to be complements to each other. I don't know. What do you think about that? Great. Well, as long as it's something that's flattering, like communication, we're all good in the hood. But if I go and I say, well, women are hypergamous, well, you can't say that about everybody. I say women are kind of more childlike than men are because of that emotional proclivity that they have, because they have a natural, innate way of understanding their world through instinct and motion. If I say that the reason that they're more childlike because of that, then I'm a jerk. Then it's, no, we're all individuals. People are people, and we're all special. It's like, oh, yeah, on an individual level, okay, fine. But on a gender and a sex specific level, we have similarities amongst our binary two genders, that are unique, in some cases unique, in some cases, you know, there's some crossover too, but you know, we can point those out. But as long as they're flattering to the women, then that's okay. But if I point out something that is unflattering, like aspects of hypergamy that are unflattering to women, then they have a problem with that. Then they rely on what's called the fallacy of individuation. We're all different. We're unknowable, radical forces of chaos, and everything's random. Bullshit. It's not. And I think that we do ourselves a very grave disservice when we don't acknowledge that and we don't recognize that. And so when I hear a little child like herself saying, well, we're not all children, we're all individuals, all you're saying is that you believe in this sort of chaos theory that everybody's random and we don't have any, like, that's what you're leaning towards. And then you'll see she's going to lean back the other way here in just a second.
Because it's not at all. I know as many men as women who do that. Adults are able to manage their lives without external supervision. How many women do you know that can make sound decisions regarding finances? Few of them have the self-discipline to save money. Okay, so this is where this MGTOW guy gets off on this idea that women are irresponsible children. Now, if you go and you, and I'm going to, sorry, whoever wrote this, but I'm going to prove you wrong. And she's right on this particular aspect. Women control, in a course of a family's, history. I've got a good infographic on all the things that women control as far as spending is concerned. They're very good at saving money.
They're very reserved. That's just it. When you look at how women like invest money, they do it very conservatively, very safely. They're looking for security. So when men invest, they tend to be aggressive. They tend to be like, they'll take risks that women won't take because, again, that's female nature, security versus risk taking. Which sex do you think has more risk taking, is comfortable risk taking, and which one do you think is not? Men? Oh, okay, great. Okay, so I guess maybe there is some sort of, gendered difference in that particular aspect of human beings, right? That's not to say that you can't find a few women who are risk takers and are aggressive investors. Okay. But on the bell curve, most men, the risk takers that are there are more likely to be men. The ones that aren't are more likely to be women. That's how it usually works out. So to say that they don't have to save money or they don't do good with their finances, I would definitely argue against that because I've seen the statistics. And the statistics are is that women are, maybe it's not earning, but they are definitely good at controlling the finances. Why do you think that there would be such a thing? Or why do you think that they would try to redefine like sort of sexual or spousal abuse as financial abuse? Why would the Duluth model of feminism try to in some way legislate that? Right? Because women want that control. They want the control over the money. They want control over the spend. It's not like they want to, like every woman uniquely wants to find some way to control the finances so they control their man. But that's becoming I would say probably very soon, if not already. I think maybe in some states it is. If a man doesn't like fork over the cash or keeps his wife on a budget, then he's being abusive. So there's that aspect right there, but there's also you have to look at the stats where women do the majority of the spending. Women are the most, they are the peak consumers of Western society, and marketers know that. And that's why they market to them. That's why they market men's products to women, so that the women will buy them for the men. So yeah, in a way, I agree with this guy. In another way, I kind of don't agree with him, but let's continue.
Well, me for one.
Me.
For another, all of my female friends for like...
I'm speaking for females.
5 more. I don't have that many female friends, but the ones I do...
Imagine that.
Very responsible. Women...
Right. Very responsible.
...are terrible at making decisions because they think with their hearts and are full of fear and insecurity. Well, I disagree with this. Yes, certain studies have shown that men tend to lean a little bit more towards the rational and women tend to lean a little bit more towards the emotional.
Actually, it's a lot more.
However, as human beings, we're all controlled by our emotions.
No, we aren't. Although a feminine-centric, gynocentric society would love you to believe that we are. Because a gynocentric society is dependent on feels before reals. You want to know why we're in the shit we are right now with the riots and with COVID and all this other crap that's going on, and we're going to still be in right up until probably the last week of October. It's because we have standardized a Western globalized culture based on feels before reals, based on the idea that we're all emotional. We just see everything through emotions. Yeah, we do, because we have been conditioned to think that is the correct way to do things. Because we don't have, it's not that it's a natural thing, it's that it's a conditioned thing. Because we've conditioned at least the last 4 generations of men to be more emotional, to believe that if we are expressive of our emotions, if we are more in touch with our feminine side, which really means our emotional side, then we would have a better society. And can't we just put women in charge? Yada, 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 yada. Well, the basis of all of that is the idea that emotion should guide our actions, that emotion should be the things, or it should be the aspect of human nature. Imagine that. There's actually some fucking human nature. All right. Okay. So you've just admitted that there is an emotional filter that we put things through. I guess that must be part of human nature. We're not all special snowflakes. There's things that keep us all together. Wow. Or there's things that are unique to human males' experiences and to human females' experiences. But the thing that she's getting at here is that she seems to think, and I understand why, because for the last, really since the sexual evolution, this idea that we're all emotional like wrecks, right? We're all, everything's just emotional. And guys are like, they're just all about anger because that's their emotional reaction. Or women are, she was just saying, women are very irresponsible. Well, but that's interesting because you've just said that women are emotional and yet they're supposed to be really good with money and finances, right? They're not making those decisions, those financial decisions based on their emotions that you just now said that well, first of all, women do more than men, but also that everybody does. And so now what she's going to do is she's going to take this argument, and we'll get into the childishness thing here in just a second because I want her to finish through this. But what she's about to do here is she's about to run the argument through the emotional filter based on the blank slate. We're all the same, but we're not the same when I want us to not be the same, but we're all the same when I do want us to be the same. So what she's going to do now, she's going to run this through the blank slate. So let's get that.
It's the first kind of like driving force in a lot of our decisions, even in men. And even if there are gender differences, like there are still outliers. There are still people who fall at different parts of the spectrum.
So I guess we should standardize on those outliers then, right? Because we need to make them feel special.
Every woman is only controlled by her heart, and not every man is only controlled by logic. It's a big spectrum. All people are different. You can't.
All people are different. There it is, the lie of individuation.
You can't make these big sweeping like generalizations and use it as a bad thing. And even if women are generally a little bit more emotional than men, again, that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes you need a little bit of heart in decision makings. You can't just be cold and calculated the whole time, because
well, actually you can, particularly in decisions that are life or death, particularly in decisions that you're going to have to pay consequences for if you don't use your fucking head. If you are a woman in a gynocentric social order where your decision making and particularly your reproductive decision making, but any decision making is pretty much absolved or covered by men, or is expected to be covered or reduced, or your fail safe is men, then yeah, it is important that you do those things. Now, I'm not saying you got to be some cold, calculated, dark triad, ass hat all the time. Yes, that's one of the great things about women being more emotional and men being more rational is that when we come together, we tend to work as a complement to one another rather than standardizing on the idea that emotion should be what's the driving force behind our politics, behind our personal decisions, behind our family decisions, behind everything else. So yeah, is it good that women are emotional? Yeah, good. I'm glad, because it helps nurture the next generation. If they weren't, then poor kids, right? But what she's doing is she's sort of having her cake and eating it too. It's like whatever she wants it to be is the direction that she follows. So let's keep going.
That's not how human beings work. Sometimes the best decisions come from a place of like empathy and caring and wanting to do the best for other people, Actually,
that's where a lot of really bad decisions come from. Now, we could want to say, well, those are humanistic. And again, that's getting to the topic of today's show, which is, do women dehumanize other women? Well, I think what I'm seeing right here is this idea that women should be this humanizing force and that men are not this humanizing force. But if we look at the worst aspects of femininity, like I was saying before, what's wrong with women in today's world, right? There's at least a dozen, maybe 24 different videos. I was doing my homework for this video to see who talked about this particular topic in the first place. What I think is funny and fascinating is that when women talk about, men are so dehumanizing, or they'll talk about how like men are, they're slut shaming us, or they're so horrible, whatever, or they generalize, and whatever you can wipe off, you can wipe off on men. You can find some kind of root in women doing it to other women. So it's when we talk, I'm just going to use slut shaming here as the source here. Women slut shame women far more than any man. Particularly the majority of men in Western globalized society, do their best to avoid that. Because if they do, they lose their jobs, they lose their family, they lose their dog. It's like a bad country song. You will lose everything if you seem in some way slut shaming or you seem in some way as a sexist. But you know why women hate slut shaming? Not because guys are doing it, because women do it to other women. So when you look at women going into like OnlyFans or you know, pretty much selling themselves out in their only reasonable agency, which is their sexuality, women tend to commodify themselves. But then they say, well, I had to commodify myself because men made me do it, because biology made me do it, because whatever. Like we just want to talk about how we're all individuals and we all make our own choices and we should all be held responsible for it. Well, the problem is when we get to the idea of like, oh, you're dehumanizing us. Well, women have a greater capacity to dehumanize themselves and each other way more than men do, but they only see it in men because it's unflattering when it comes from a man. When it comes from a woman, they're not going to say, well, you're moralistic or you're slut shaming or anything. Well, when's the last time you've heard a woman say that another woman was slut shaming her, that other women were? They will always point at that term at men. They do not point it at each other, but they know damn well that it comes more from, it's a sexual, intrasexual combat technique, is to shame other women, to disqualify women from the reproductive, selection, let's say, from men.
Women's natural role is one of subordination. She is a follower, a dependent. She has no business being in any position of authority over men. The mere idea is offensive. No, that statement is offensive. Western society operates on this absurd notion that women are equal to men, because they are. And this is why we have lost our way. If you view women as your equal, you will inevitably become frustrated with their inability to live up to that designation. Let's view and treat women based on what they are, not what gender idealism tells us they should be. And if we get to rebuild this civilization, it is paramount that they are not allowed to vote ever again. Because that worked out so well in the past, didn't it?
Actually, it did work out pretty well in the past. It worked out, voting and political influence worked out really well when people who had a vested interest in I'm not going to say like women, just like even men had a vested interest in that actual society. I know I don't want to get too political here, but this is going to be like really Starship Troopers here for you. Like the idea that people who have some sort of skin in the game with respect to whatever the government is or whatever the nationality is or whatever your political influence is, that people who have skin in the game are the ones who should be able to have a voice, to have the ones to have something that's in there. I think what's funny, and I forget the video that I saw this in, but there was prior to the suffragettes, or right around the suffragettes, one of the arguments that the anti-suffragettes were talking about is this concept that we, like today, when we think about women voting, we don't think about it in the same way that we used to, because back in like say the turn of the century, right, like right around 1900, certainly probably the late 1800s to 1900s, and maybe even before that, voting, like having some sort of influence in a democratic process, at least I'm speaking from the United States here, having some sort of influence in that was seen as a civic duty. It was seen as something that you had to do, not that you necessarily wanted to do. It was something that was a sort of an earned idea rather than a given idea. It wasn't so much a right as it was you earned this particular thing. Now, yes, was it a means of control? Sure. No, absolutely, it was a means of control. But we can also see that what has happened. Okay, so she would like to make the case, at least she did just here, that it was a bad idea when women were voting. Well, I don't want to go all turd flinging monkey on you here, but he is right about this. Is if you go and you look at statistics for divorce, for abortion, for the Duluth model of feminism, for all of the things that the MGTOWs throw out there. And again, this is this one MGTOW guy being very simplistic and repeal the 19th. That's basically what he's saying. One of the reasons why I don't agree with that idea is you're never going to be able to do that. So it's kind of useless and pointless to even talk about it. Find another way, find something else, right? Oh, we're going to take their rights away. No, you're probably not, because there's going to be guys that are going to fight you on that. But you are correct in the sense that, yes, a lot of the things like fertility rates have dropped. You look at if you look at a lot of sort of the things that we find, I guess, politically and socially concerning, such as like abortion. Abortion's the easiest one, right? Because we never had that before. The stigma of abortion has been completely gone. But how do we get to that point? Well, we had women who influenced the vote, influenced the way that the country was going to go, or the way that society was going to go. What are we going to teach? Title IX, right? What are we going to? I think a lot of the reasons why we're at in the age of ego, in the age of feels before reals, is because we have allowed women the vote. Because we have allowed because at some point we said women are the equal of men. We said women are co-equal, co-rational thinkers. And I'm not saying that they don't have the capacity for that. I'm just saying they don't have the natural proclivity for that. So when she says, what is it? Women are more emotional, men are more rational. You just said that a second ago. And say, well, not to great deals. No, actually, if you go and you look at the work of Dr. Steven Pinker and you look at the blank slate, they're a lot bigger than most of the differences. Sexual differences they're larger than people are comfortable in relating to other people. So because it goes against the narrative, and we can see what's happening right now when you go against the mob, when you go against the mob thought, what Royce used to call the hive mind, right? When you go against the hive mind, there's consequences for that. And how do we get to that point? Well, we got to that point because we let women vote. And then now the society reflects. Turfling Monkey is very correct in the sense that women will only vote for their own interests. Women also outvote men. Usually, they're the ones that are out there. And I was asked this one time. I feel like I need to sort of clarify this because who was I on with? I was on with Andrew Hale back in January. And I was on his, this was this year. I think so far back. But he asked me, he said, would you ever vote for a woman? And I said, no. And he looked at me with, raising eyebrows. Why? Because you're sexist or da, da, da. I'm like, no, because I don't think that any woman will ever have men's interests at the core of what their decision-making process is. Because when we see women get into positions of power, when we see them become congresswomen and senators and eventually we're going to have a female president. Sorry, guys, it's probably going to happen. But when women get into positions of political power, the first priority that they have is not the betterment of the whole society on whole. It is not representing their constituents on whole. It is, how can I contribute to the sisterhood? What can I do to change things to better off women? It is always a gendered, sexed thing when it comes to women. So when you talk about like abortion, when you talk about like women's reproductive rights, when you talk about, late-term abortions, I mean, we can split hairs for a long time. But if you go and you look at like, say, these divisions, and by the way, don't peg me as saying that this is all just about, liberal progressive women. This is about conservative women as well. They do the same thing. That's why people will say like, well, what if there's a conservative woman and a liberal man and a Democratic man who is on the ticket? I would have to actually either abstain from that vote, or I would have to look at what that quote unquote liberal Democratic guy was really all about. But I would not vote for the woman. And I said, well, that's ideological. No, that's rational. That's me trying to figure out what, where I think, I say loyalties, but where I think priorities would be for a man and a woman. That's why I said that. It's not because I'm like, oh, you women can't run the country. Well, they're going to run it, but they're going to run it in a way of emotional priorities. So like I said before, and this was when I was talking about like men and women crying. I think I talked about this last week. There's a difference when a woman cries and a man cries. So if the president of the United States sheds a tear, we say, oh, that's weakness. When we see a woman doing that, we go, oh, it's just a woman being a woman. So there's going to be gender differences when we're looking at someone who is in political power. So if a woman is in political power, we go, oh, she's being a woman. The guy does it, we see it as a sign of weakness. That right there is a gender difference within a power structure. So another reason why sex is very, very important. let us continue. I am going to get I let her finish here.
By the same person. Why would any man want to settle down with a woman who wasn't a virgin?
Okay, well, I got to stop here really quickly because I want to address the child thing first. And the reason why I want to address this is here's the deal with respect to guys like saying, well, women are just children, or women are the smartest girl or the most grown up girl or teenager in the house, those kinds of things. You have to know where that came from. And I'm going to read just a quick passage. And this is all credit to a guy named Whisper on the Red Pill subreddit. But this is sort of me paraphrasing his work on this, but this is actually pretty, people have probably heard this before. So why I'm going to talk about this a little bit. This is actually a passage from book 4 that I'm going to read to you really quickly. I'm going to run down a few things here. Okay. So this is why most men see women as children. Okay. So let's see. Eggs are expensive and sperm is cheap. If you have even a marginal interest in intersexual dynamics, no doubt you've read this somewhere. Even if you haven't, or if you're a religious leader, you probably have some learned instinctual grasp of men's duty for sacrifice, right? Particularly tradcon men. Men need to be men. The responsibility, that's this romantic ideal that we need to protect our women. But how do we get to this? How do we get to that role? Okay, so here's the deal. So why are eggs expensive and why is sperm so cheap? Beyond the obvious answer of one egg cell versus millions of sperm cells, the answer is very simple. Human beings have giant heads. So this is the deal. It goes like this. Human beings survive by being smart, okay? By having a larger brain and having more synapses, and we can talk, you can joke about how smart human beings are or aren't, but we're smart enough to be the apex species on this planet, okay? To make the smart brain, you have to have a lot of neurons. To make a lot of neurons, you have to start early in the gestation process, which means human babies have giant heads, but you need to get those babies out of their mothers. So their mothers need inefficiently wide hips, sophisticated brain incubators, and a whole bunch of other expensive reproductive modifications. Thus, human females are vulnerable. Do you like that? You remember when people would say, well, women are they're not the weaker sex. We can be anything a man is. No, well, you evolved, ladies, if you're watching this, you evolved to be the vulnerable sex. Okay. So human females are vulnerable and physically helpless compared to the majority of males. You also have to deliver those babies while their heads are still small enough to fit through the birth canal through those widened hips. As such, every human baby is essentially born premature and requires a comparatively long time to reach self-sufficiency. For every human baby is essentially born premature and requires a comparatively long time to reach self-sufficiency. Okay. So for comparison here, infant horses can run away within a few hours of being born. So a horse is a big animal, right? But once it comes out, it can get up onto its feet. It can run away from danger. It becomes a little bit more self-sufficient as soon as it's out and it's on its feet. For babies, for human babies, they're completely helpless. They're meat. They're just food for another predator, right? So in our ancestral past, a human female was vulnerable, inefficient, weaker physically specimen who for much of her life is carrying around one or more weak and delicate offspring. Neither can run or fight or hunt. Okay, so little babies are completely helpless. I don't think I need to, that's fairly obvious, right? Unlike females of other species, female humans were constantly dependent on the males to protect, feed, and care for them. Thus, the provisioning / security needs side of hypergamy, the beta buck side of hypergamy, that became very important, a very important priority in our compatibility, right? Our complementarity. So men needed to be the ones who would have to have some sort of innate protector instinct over that woman. And women would in some way have to have some sort of reciprocal, trade-off to get that guy to want to protect her, right? So let's keep going. As a result, human females also acquired, like I said, the hypergamy side is very impriority. As a result, human females also acquired a proximity acquired by proximity some of the fragility and importance of humanity's very expensive and fragile children. So when we say, well, women are like children, that is actually an evolved proclivity for men to see women as children. It's our protector instinct. So let me read that one more time. As a result, human females also acquired by proximity some of the fragility and at least the perception, right? Like the impression of this, the fragility and importance of humanity's very expensive and fragile children. So you've got a woman who is nurturing the child, who's taking care of the baby. She's just as helpless as the baby when it comes to like external threats and things like that. She needs a network of women. She needs a protector. There needs to be a protection instinct, right, in men. So when men say, well, women are just like children, that's where a lot of this comes from. This is an evolved aspect of really male nature, right? And thank God for male nature, because if not, we would not be where we are right now. So now a problem arises in this reality. How do you prevent the males from tyrannizing the females to the detriment of the whole species, right? By imbuing males with the same protective instincts towards them that women have towards children. And how do you prevent the females from exploiting that protective instinct to take advantage of the males, or from making themselves unprotectable by ignoring male guidance? By imbuing those females with the same instinctive obedience towards men that children have towards women. So I'm sure you guys have seen this. I've used this as an example in a couple of in my second book when I was talking about hierarchies of love, and usually it is if you want to. And in this book, it's going to be this way. There's God, there's the man, there's the woman, and then there's the children, and then there's the puppy dogs, right? Whatever. So what that follows is this sort of evolved natural order where men are the protectors of the woman, and the woman is in love or is in respect or in whatever with that guy, because that guy is providing that woman with basically her life, like keeping her safe, keeping her and her children safe. And so there has to be some sort of association. So it's man's responsibility to take care of the woman and the children. So it makes sense. Evolutionarily, that makes sense. Okay. But we have to imbue them with the same instinctive obedience towards men that children have towards women. So children are dependent on the mothers. And so when we see that, as men, when we see that, we're supposed to protect not only just the women, but we're also supposed to protect the children as well. And so as such, we sort of associate women as being, well, more vulnerable. Of course we do. That's why when women cry, we go, oh, what's wrong? When a guy cries, we go, man up, right? But when a little baby cries, we go, what's wrong with the baby? Fix the baby. How do we fix the baby? Like when when he freaks out, then we want to fix the baby. We think that, oh, there's something wrong. There's a snake in the cradle, right? Okay, so we want to protect the child. We want to protect the mother. We want to make sure that, happy wife, happy life, right? That's where that comes from. Is we have this innate instinctual protector dynamic that makes us see women or associate women with childishness, with that kind of, whatever it is. I don't know. So because human beings have giant heads, men instinctively protect and care for women. Women instinctively want to obey and respect worthy men. Women are to men as children are to women in terms of protection. Humans strive for learned, socially enforced monogamy despite an innate nature that incentivizes a more efficient promiscuity as a mating strategy. So for women, remember that promiscuity and cuckolding guys is still a viable mating strategy for her. But because it risks that man's paternal instincts or his paternal interests, let's say, because it risks that, there's a cost to benefit thing that goes on because it goes against the protector instinct. No, that's not my kid. That's my wife. She's cheated on me. I don't want to protect her. She can go die, right? The saber-toothed tigers can eat her. So therefore, sexism is hardwired into our species by evolution as an inevitable result of our giant heads. Every religion, social philosophy, or sexual strategy is grounded in working in these two instincts: the female instinct to submit and the male instinct to protect. So let that sink in right there. I wanted to, I'm excited, kind of loath to to read anything out of book 4, but I thought that that was really applicable because a lot of guys don't understand why it is that men see women as the smartest teenager in the house. That's why. You have that association. You have that mental association with women. Now, has that been exacerbated by social media in this new age of technology and OnlyFans and guys like, what is it, guys simping and everything else? Yeah, that's where it comes from. That simping instinct. That's an instinct, man. That protector, white knighting, that's where it comes from. It's that innate male protector dynamic. And you really, as a guy, you have to really kind of you have to pull yourself out and really see what you're doing, because even fully rational red pill guys will go and want to simp for a girl. I'll even MGTOWs will go and want to simp for a girl, and I can give you one really good example. I got to protect her. I got to bring her over here. She's overseas. I'm going to bring her here and make her my wife. I'm going to whatever. That's the protector dynamic. That's why you see that girl as being like, we say, well, we're not children. No, but you're seen as children. You will always be seen as children because that's how we're built. That's a very long answer to that one.
Even if she had just one boyfriend, she still had sex with him dozens of times. It's still secondhand. Modernity is disgusting and I want no part of it. Well, don't worry, because even us secondhand women wouldn't want to touch you. Not with an attitude like that. This whole idea of like secondhand women, it's disgusting. It's not nice, is it? It is treating us as objects. What a person has done with their bodies in the past should have no impact on who they are now in their current relationship.
Okay. Once again, let's deconstruct this one right here. And I understand what the time is right now. I'm not going to get to the end of this video, which is just fine, but I made my point. What she's once again relying on the lie of individuation, but also she is falling back on the idea that it shouldn't matter. She doesn't understand why it is that guys would have a problem with a woman having sex with the guys. Have a it's none of your business, right? Don't ask, don't tell. It doesn't matter how many she has because because of this, because her rational mind should be able to supersede her emotional mind, which she's already said is not really women's strong point. Okay. So what she's saying is that, well, it shouldn't matter. People are people. She can make her own decisions and you shouldn't have a problem with that. This is exactly the same logic that for a large part, really since the 70s, that we've been using as a war on paternity. It shouldn't matter who the father of the child is. You're the guy who stepped up. It shouldn't matter how many men she's been with prior to you. She's with you right now. Remember how, and guys say this all the time. And, Donovan, this is one of Donovan Sharp's favorite quotes, which is, it's not your turn, or it's not, she's never yours. It's just your turn. And what's funny is women both love and hate that because they know it's true. First of all, they know it's true because they don't want to be owned, right? Unless it's like the worthy guy, the guy that they really want to be owned by. And I mean, owned, or else it's I'm independent and I'm my own person, because that goes against sort of the feminine, really the feminist ideal, which is I'm a strong, independent woman and I don't need anyone outside of myself. And I'm only with you because I've selected you for this moment. And so they get remember we were talking about how women can hold two different cognitive dissonances in whichever one suits their particular purpose at that time. She's a fantastic example of this. Whatever suits the female imperative, whatever conflicting ideology that a woman holds that will benefit her in the long term, whether that's reproductive security, whether that's life security, whether that's, I got with the hot guy that I can lock down. If it works for her at that moment, that's the one that she goes with. And she has no qualms about that because it's a survival, instinctual, adaptive imperative for her to do so. She's better off she's a more successful reproducing human being if she can do that. And so guys will say, it's horrible. She's being unethical. It's immoral. Okay, you can characterize it as that way. But remember this, evolution doesn't care where the babies come from. It only cares that they come. So that's why you get those things. And that's another, again, this isn't to depress you. It isn't to piss you off. It isn't so, oh, I hate all women now. I hope you don't. But what you need to know is that this kind of stuff exists. And this is the mentality. This is the thinking. And so plan accordingly. If that's what you want to do, right? Like plan accordingly. Use this. These are tools. This is not to make, I said that this is a maxim I think that every guy who calls himself red pill or red pill aware needs to say, is that the red pill does not exist so that you will hate women. It exists so that you will not hate them for what they can never be to you. And when you know that, you go, okay, now my expectations of women have changed. Now my expectations of a relationship or sex or having a child, whatever. Now it's changed because now I know more about me. I know more about her. I know about women in general, women's nature and men's nature. Make your plans accordingly.
As long as they were safe, as long as they're currently healthy, it really doesn't make a difference. If you're worried about a woman's sexual past, I think that says more about your insecurities than it does anything about her.
Okay, right there is, and I've done full episodes on this, and this is what I was talking about. I think I might actually link this one too, because I've done a full episode on, does it matter whether, should you as a guy care what a woman's sexual past is? And the answer is always yes. In fact, you can't not care about what her sexual past is. You can't not be, I won't say obsessed, but you can't not have a concern about that as a guy, because you evolved to be concerned with, as a man, your natural mental firmware, your natural proclivities is for jealousy. It is to say to yourself, is this the kind of woman that is going to be loyal to me? And we say, well, it's loyal, but we put it in terms of like morals. Well, she's got to be loyal. She's got to be honored. She's got to be respectable. She's got to have integrity. La, 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 la. That's human. That's your front brain. Okay. Your hind brain is this. That chick is not a good bet for my paternity. That's where it comes from. It's not about, oh, you feel honorable and virtuous and all. No. Okay. That's all front brain stuff. That's all you like coming up with. Oh, my religion, my family, whatever taught me my values. Here's my values. And she doesn't meet those values. Okay. How did you get to those values? What was back here? All in the back. It's all hindbrain stuff. And the hindbrain stuff says this. It says a woman who is not a good bet for being honest about paternity, though, a woman who has the potential to cuckold you. Well, that's an evil woman, right? That's a non-virtuous woman. That is a woman who doesn't do what she says she's going to do. Because up until we had, DNA testing, there was no way that a man could 100% guarantee or that the kid was his. I mean, there's some obvious, obviously it's, if you're white and the kid comes out black, maybe you got a problem. Okay. But it's not usually that apparent, or it hasn't been over the course of history. Now it is. You want to know why women don't want men to get DNA tests? Or do you know why, hospitals are legally bound not to tell the father that the child isn't his? So, well, first of all, we live in a gynocentric social order, but they understand male nature. It's going to piss that guy off. Why? Why would it matter, right? Because it doesn't matter who the father is. He should just accept it. He should just be the one who's paying the bills. It's okay, right? He should be parentally invested because that's what we respect in guys. But it doesn't. You still have that jealousy instinct. You still have that concern. Why are women so concerned about being perceived as sluts or having a slut march or whatever, like embracing it, right? They either embrace it or they don't want it, or they'll call the other girl a slut. Why is that? Who cares? Who would care? Guys want to bang. Oh, she looks hot. I want to bang her. Great. Women will pre-select. They'll try to select out other women by disqualifying them. How do they do that? Well, the best, most effective disqualification that women have ever found with other women is to say, she's not a good bet for your paternity. That's what they do. That's what slut shaming really is. The message is, hey guys, the girl that looks like that girl over there, the one that's in this fishnet stockings and the red dress and the hoop earrings, that girl right there, not a good bet if you want to have a baby that's yours. That's what they're saying, because they know in the hindbrain that that's exactly what's going on. Now we dress it up with philosophy. We can dress it up with religion. We can dress it up with like social norms, stigmas and stuff like that, which are all disappearing right now. But the fact of the matter is yes, it does matter. It does matter what your sexual past is. It matters because you might have an alpha widow on your side. You're probably likely you do. Probably very likely that you do. But they don't understand. Why is that? Why would there be a social push to get men to think that it shouldn't matter how many women how many men that a woman has been with in her past? Well, you don't ask those questions. Who cares? It doesn't matter. The most high volume trafficked essay I've ever written was Saving the Best, which is this example of this guy. And I'll just be real brief about this. This guy who had come across, his wife was very frigid, didn't want to have sex with him, only begrudgingly had sex with him in missionary position. They'd been married for like 3 or 4 years. And at one stage, I guess during their marriage, he found like this videotape of her doing like 3 and 4 ways with guys in college. And she was enjoying it. She was doing all these things with these guys that she would never do with him. And so the guy was pissed off, and he put it up on Reddit and said, am I the asshole kind of thing, right? And what do you think the response was? The response from women was, well, that shouldn't matter. She's yours now. You're together now. It shouldn't matter. I know that should make any difference. And you know what the guy's response was? Get out. You're done. She said, you're never going to have that side. That's why I said saving the best. A lot of beta male guys believe that once they get into a relationship or they get into a marriage with a woman, that the only reason that woman would be with him in the first place is because she wants him more than any other guy on planet Earth, that he's the alpha. And they'll say that, oh, I'm the alpha. She's with me. Yeah, she's with you, but she had hot sex in the foam cannon party in Cancun when she was 22 with that guy. That she bought lingerie on the credit card that you're paying the debt on right now. That guy, yeah. But we're going to absolve all that. Well, why is it that women have a problem with that? Well, first of all, women have concealed estrus, and it is in women's evolutionary best interest to keep men out of the loop. The baby's not yours. Primates do this all the time. They try to do. That's why you see female primates form sort of these social networks. They're very collectivist. I've done essays and actually I write quite a bit about it in the 4th book, how women have a natural collectivism amongst other women. And I'll dig into that in another video sometime, because I think a lot of people, particularly with the politics and things that I see coming down the road pretty soon, certainly this year, a lot of it comes back to women's innate nature of coming together and sort of supporting each other. I gotta click out of that. I'll come back to this a little bit if you guys want me to. I'm at 2 hour or an hour and 30 right now. So I want to get to some of your chats here, but I do want to say this is that when it comes to concealing paternity, it's what is it? It's confusing. Female primates, and as well as other mammals that live in sort of like community social animals, will do their best to confuse paternity amongst the alphas, for sure. And the reason for that is because human primates, alpha male human primates, a new rival one will come in, kill the other rival, and then kill off all of the offspring. So it behooves that population of females of that particular species, well, in this case primates, to conceal the genetic legacy of like whose kid is this. It is within their best interest to do that. So why would that? So here's the connection I make. This is a dot I'm connecting. I'm not saying this is set in stone, but this is a dot to think about, to connect. Is that, would it not make sense that it would be in women's best interest, whether they realize it or not? Like I said, this is all subconscious. Whether they realize it or not, would it not be in women's best interest to confuse paternity, to still confuse paternity? And if they can, barring that, because now it's getting more and more difficult to confuse paternity, barring that, like what could be done? What social institution, what social change, behavioral change, societal change could we make that would reduce men's interest in their own paternity? Well, we could make it that we can reward beta males for assuming the parental investment responsibilities of alpha males, or of whoever. Again, subjective, but whoever that other father is. So when I talk about when we talk about the cock carousel, when we talk about the party years, and a woman has and the joke is, of course, three babies from two different fathers. That's a not only is that a mating strategy now, that is a life strategy right now. So I'm going to have these kids from this man's sperm or these specimens here. And then when I get to be about, in my epiphany phase, I'm going to start looking for the responsible guy. That's evolutionary. Why? Of course it is. She can't compete. She can't she can't have those guys anymore because she can't compete with her younger self. She can't compete with her younger sisters. So there needs to be a social convention instituted that makes these guys, the guys who are the good supportive, the guy who's the beta provider, right? The guy who is invested in it, the guy who wants to protect. And that's an appeal to protection. Well, if you really love me, you wouldn't care how many guys I was with before. Well, I'm sorry, but my hindbrain is telling me to be jealous. My hindbrain is telling me that you're not a good bet for paternity because you've already got 2 kids. They're right here. I can't kill them because I'm a human. If I was a chimp or a gorilla or whatever, I would probably, that's what happens. That's what usually happens. But we're civilized human beings, and we don't do that generally. I know, and people are going to say, well, what about the stats for boyfriends and extended families or stepfathers killing? Yeah, they're 8 times as likely to kill or abuse the children than the natural biological father, which is another tragedy of gynocentrism. But how do we get there? I understand that, and that actually has a parallel, I know, in primates and lions and wolves, whatever. But how do we get to that point? Well, why? More importantly, why do we get to that point? Why do we get there? Remember when I said this? Remember when I said I would not vote for a woman when it comes to holding political power? Because women will vote for institutions and legislation that enforce that enforce not telling the guy, the non-biological father, that the kid ain't his. You've been cuckolded, sir. The jig is up. Well, you can't. Sorry, Mr. OBGYN doctor. Sorry, Miss OBGYN, sick NICU nurse. You can't do that because we're afraid that the guy will lose his mind and shoot, right? Because on some level of consciousness, we still realize that paternity means something to guys. And if a guy has a natural proclivity for violence and anger, that might happen. But you married a beta male guy, he shouldn't care about it anyways, because it's all about the kid, right? That's what I talk about when I talk about the cult of the child. Everything is for the kids. Everything is for your children's best interest. It goes back to that protector dynamic. If everything is in the child's best interest, what that means is it's also whatever is good for the child is good for the mom, usually, unless the mom is a drug addict or something like that. So that kind of legislation is the first priority of women when they get into power. So I would say that that's not something that's in men's interests. Title IX, okay, well, you can go through, well, don't you think women should be equal? Yeah, okay, fine. But that's the first priority that you have. The first, I think it was, I forget who it was. There was because they were trying to do they're kind of trying to monkey around with the abortion laws, I think in certain states. I know this happened in Georgia here in the United States. They were trying to say, well, you can't have an abortion after the 3rd trimester or something like that. They were trying to just basically outlaw, late term abortions. And of course, what happens is all the female lawmakers not only locally, but in the state, but also federally, they put out these joke. They were basically jokes, but they put out these kind of frivolous laws that would prevent a man from masturbating unless he got permission from his wife. It was never going to see the light of day, but that's what these women did. That was their priority. Well, if that's going to happen, then we're going to show you, we're going to say you can't jerk off unless you get your wife's permission. That's the kind of law that women will be happy to obviously it's just a statement. I get it. Or it's not even a joke. It's just supposed to be send some kind of message well, it's our bodies, our choices. Well, the problem is it's not just your bodies, your choices. It's also men's. Once the sperm leaves your body, man, you are out of control of that. And there's no legal, and again, why? Because there's nobody pitching in for guys to say, you know what, my body, my choice, and my sperm, if it's out there and it gets used against my knowledge or whatever, I'm not paying child support for that. Oh, sorry. There's women who've already voted that says that you have to do that, even if even if it's what's technically called birth fraud. We don't talk about that. That's why I won't vote for women. Not because I'm an ass. I'm not saying that maybe women wouldn't be a good leader or whatever. It's just that their natural proclivity or their natural priorities are for the sisterhood, not for humankind. It's always a gender issue. Since the sexual revolution, all politics are gendered politics right now, and they're only getting worse right now. All right, I'm going to stop there because, and like I said, I could go on. This is a 20-minute video. And it's pretty much the same kind of pablum you guys are used to. You guys are used to seeing when it comes to stuff like this. Again, this isn't some sort of attack video on her. Please don't go to her and go, oh, you remember Rollo Tomassi really tore you up. Don't. That's you're supposed to learn from this video. This is not me throwing rocks. This is you learning things and addressing the common reflexive thinking. Not just I've heard guys talk exactly like this girl. So it's not just a guy or a girl thing. This is just a gender, like a gynocentric thing. This is this is the blue pill. How do you identify the blue pill? This is where it's at. And there are probably guys, and I don't know because I can't look at all the comments. Of course, everybody wants to. It becomes a pissing contest, and it becomes what do you call it? YouTube blood sports. And I'm not interested in YouTube blood sports. So again, this is not a big take. Oh, he took her down. Don't think that. Okay, I'm not trying to take her down. I'm trying to lift you up. That's what I'm trying to do. All right, let me get to Tiger the Brave. Tiger says, "What do you have on male friendship? My boyfriends don't want to hear anything about genuine desire, and I have a temper and a difficult time dealing." Okay, I have actually 3 different. Tiger, whenever you have questions like that, before you spend 35, whatever ZARs those are, before you do that, go and put in friends into the search engine at The Rational Male. I have at least 4 different essays about intergender friendships. So go and look at those. The best one I can think of is there's 2 of them. One's called Playing Friends, and then there's another one called Intergender or Intersexual Friendships. And the basis of that is that women have boyfriends and girlfriends. If you aren't banging her, you are her girlfriend. Go, and people lose their minds over that. Well, before you lose your minds, go read the thing. Okay, then come to me and lose your mind. Let's see. Renegade Show says Savage Rollo showed up today. I know, like I said, I was coming in hot, man. I don't know. Things got under my skin today. Not even this girl really, but just things in general. Niles Lindqvist says, why are women often siding with other women over their sons? Siding with other women over the sons. Why raise an army of sons unable to navigate the world to their advantage? Isn't biology dictating that successful sons are better? Well, here's the thing. This is a common question. I have guys who say, well, they've asked me this in the past. And they say, why would a woman raise a beta male? Why would she go about doing that? Why wouldn't she want a guy, her son of all people? Why would she not want him to be an alpha? And I think that for the most part, women would like that, but they also see that son as a protector. They see that son as they want what since the sexual revolution. I mean, I gotta back up and qualify this a little bit. Since the sexual revolution, when there's been a much higher incidence of single motherhood, where we've reached a point where 43% of children are born out of wedlock today, or in Black communities, more Black babies are aborted than actually are born. Now that we're here, this is a new phenomenon, by the way. Prior to this, but remember, we had stigmas that went along with this. Like we had stigmas for single mothers. We had stigmas for babies born out of wedlock. We had stigmas for women who weren't even married, right? Yeah, you just go back as just just back to like the 60s or the 50s, and that was the case. So this is a new phenomenon, but we see it, and you're right. There's a definite commonality. So why is that? Well, the way I see it is this. And this is again me connecting dots. Is first of all, it's a protector dynamic, but then what I would say is that when women get into those situations, remember, women have the ability to abort a child unilaterally. They can kill the child in utero. If her hypergamy says that guy's not the one for me, there's going to be some conflict there. If she still has the baby in spite of that, it's probably because of religious convictions or it's because of practical decisions. So that's when she's going to resort to something a little more reasonable. When it comes to a woman getting pregnant and she's got like 3 guys who are possibilities, like she's banging 3 guys at the same time, she has sex with the alpha, has his baby. She knows it's his baby, but she's going to tell the beta guy who has the most money and the most prospects that it's his kid. And she knows she's off the hook because the legislation says that the DNA test can't be revealed to that guy, can't be divulged to that guy. And only then if that guy actually asks for it or pushes for it. That's why that 23andMe, I would like to see, and maybe somebody can give me the stats on this. I would like to see what the incidence of like paternity fraud, cuckoldry. I would like to see what the incidence is since 23andMe has become a thing, right? As well, find out what your genealogy is. Yeah, that's a really, like, whoever did that probably is making a lot of money, not on what he thought he was going to make money on, but on like DNA tests. Are these kids really mine? The reason I think this is because, or why would women like want a guy like that, or why would they side, right? So you're saying, I think what you're asking here is why would women often siding with other women over their sons? Usually it's because it's in their interests to do so. It might be the sisterhood as well. Why raise an army of sons unable to navigate the world? Well, usually it's so that women have that sense of control and they have that sense of security. Above all else, I think a lot of people get confused because I talk about, the 2 sides of hypergamy, which is alpha seed and beta need. We tend to focus only on one or the other. Like if you talk to Jordan Peterson, he doesn't even, I don't think I've ever heard him recognize the alpha seed side of hypergamy. It's all, well, you just got to be a good man and be a provider and be, agreeable and be nice and be negotiable and all, whatever. And then you'll get the guys, like particularly on the black pill side of things. They'll be like, no, man, it's all about, you just got to be a Chad and you got to look good and you'll just bang her and you'll reproduce. Well, it's usually in between, but I think we tend to, particularly in the manosphere, we tend to focus on either or. We tend to think that one is more important than the other, when that's a dualistic nature of women's mating strategy. So in this case, most guys will say, well, why do they do that? Why do women like raise an army of beta males? Well, because those women are focusing on the beta seed side of things, or excuse me, the beta need side of things, the provisioning, the long-term security. I got to teach my man to be the guy that the asshole alpha, who's his dad, will never be. I want my son to be the provider, I want my son to be the alpha I could never lock down. That's what that comes down to. John Garcia says, Rollo, does a large body count age a woman faster than normal? How large? Triple digits large? John, that's a good question. I think really what wears women down more than anything is smoking, drinking, obesity. It's funny, all the things that she dismissed in this video about, women can do whatever they want as long as they do it responsibly. That's the problem. They're not doing it responsibly. So you'll get women who are, who would otherwise be like, say, in their mid 30s and they look like they're in their mid 40s. It's usually because they've made bad health decisions at that time. And what comes along with those, women who have tattoos tend to be more promiscuous. Women who smoke tend to be more promiscuous. We can look at the stats. Women who drink more tend to be more promiscuous. So those are sweeping generalities. Well, they're generalities because of a reason. You can say, well, women are, again, you can balance that out by saying, well, that's the fallacy of individuation. Well, women are women and they make their own decisions. Yeah, well, oddly enough, women who get to be about 36 years old and all they've done is drink, smoked, and ate ding dongs, they tend to look, road hard and put up wet. So I don't know if it's necessarily the body count. I think it's just like sort of the living more than anything. So decisions, health decisions. Kelly Phuong Thong, I can't remember. That sounds Vietnamese, dude. So I don't want to butcher your name. I want to respect the Vietnamese because I like them. Is there a rational female you can suggest we send our daughters to? Just picked up your volume 2 and 3. Thank you for all your hard work. Okay, Kelly, here's the deal. Read 2, but in book 3, I talk about daughters. There's actually a whole chapter dedicated for red pill parents, red pill fathers raising daughters. Read that first and see if that answers some of your questions first. I don't believe in red pill females. I think that every female is red pill. I think the trick is getting it out of them, like getting them to admit it and to accept it. Most of them won't. But then what happens is women say, okay, you're right. All this red pill stuff is 100% correct. You're right. You caught us. But it's your responsibility to be men and take care of us. And the jig is up. Okay, you're right. But then there's this appeal to the protector dynamic, to the provisioning dynamic, to I'm just a child. Take care of me. I'm the damsel in distress. Why? It's funny. When I was talking about that just a minute ago, when it comes to like the protector instinct, that's where we get themes like, certainly Beauty and the Beast, but Cinderella, Princess, the Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, those fairy tales. That's where that comes from. Men are supposed to protect. They slay the dragon, and then the wife or the girl becomes the wife, and they have babies, and they live happily ever after. Man protects, and women. Why? Why has that been like the same theme, the archetype, right? Why has that been the same theme right up until the sexual revolution? What changed right in 1965 that could have changed that? Now it's the princess saves the prince. How did that happen? It's been that way. The theme has been that way for, let's see, about 10,000 years. And then 50 years ago, things changed. So anyways, I'm sorry. I don't mean to joke around with you. Kelly, go read book 3. If you really want that answer, read book 3 first. Mr. C, is there any validity to the rationale that women are the children that they argue or defend, offer opinions based solely on emotional feelings? Yes, there's lots. Like I said before, Mr. C, if you missed that part, this will be in, I read that actually from my manuscript from book 4. That will be it's in the beginning of the book. But understanding the biomechanics that are associated with why men feel that way, feel that women are children or consider them to be children. They are as vulnerable as children. Why is it that when a woman is attacked, 10 guys from nowhere that they have no idea who they are, they rush in and they try to protect that guy, and they in some cases kill the guy who dared to even raise a hand to a woman? Why is that a thing? Well, it's intensified right now because of the state of society, our global society. We've never been as globalized a society as we are now. And as such, all of this stuff, all of the gynocentrism is exported to other countries all around the world, whether it's through pop culture or it's through internet culture or it's through religion or it's through social understanding. This is what we think. That's globalization. And with that, we have exponentially disseminated that idea that, women are helpless and they need protection. But at the same time, women are independent and they're strong and they're G.I. Janes and they'll kick your ass they're tough women with guns. And so there's kind of this controversy, there's this conflict right now. And I don't think there's going to be any resolution to it, not while we're a globalized society, because you can't reach enough people and educate enough people, and you can't expect enough people not to be emotional. You can't expect them to be, oh, really? And then change their mind, rationally change their mind. You're never going to rationally change people's minds. I've learned that the hard way. And I hate to say that that's some sort of Rollo Tomassi revelation. It's I have to pick my battles now, because I have been the kind of guy who gets invested in my my wanting to educate. I jokingly refer to myself as a professor, right? I'm not really a professor. I was actually one time, but I was teaching graphic design. But I think that particularly if you learn a lesson about like social media, any of this stuff, you will realize that you will not change people's minds. Not with stats, not with facts, not with studies, not with research, not with metadata, not with nothing. People primarily create their own belief set based on lived experience or whatever has been sort of thrown into their heads as a result of lived experience. So imagery, emotion is way more powerful right now than like, hey, I found 10 different studies that say that hypergamy is a thing. You find one that isn't. Oh, I forgot it. I don't want to believe it. You're full of crap. Screw that guy. How many beliefs do you have? I asked this in book 4. How many beliefs do you have that you formed because you saw 10 peer-reviewed, independently funded, peer-reviewed research, abstracts for, these particular experiments, and they all convinced you to change your mind about something? How many of your beliefs do you hold because of that? 0. because you don't. It's an emotional thing. She's not wrong when it comes to, the girl was not wrong when it comes to like men and women making decisions based on emotion. I would argue that reason for men mostly is because ever since the sexual revolution, we have trained and conditioned men via the blue pill to prioritize emotion before reason. Just because you have a natural proclivity, like when I say, men have a natural proclivity for anger, or they have a better spatial ability, or we have, there are things that are unique to men that men are better at than women are naturally. It's not that you can't condition men to be, to either repress or to enhance those things. You can do the same thing with women too. It's like when men have a natural ability to throw a ball or throw a rock more accurately and with more force than a woman naturally without being taught. That's why we say when you throw like a girl, you throw like a girl. That's why. Because women don't have that natural proclivity. Oh, no, that's sexist. No, it's not sexist. It's just the fucking way you've been built. That's how it works. And can I teach a girl to be a professional MLB pitcher? Sure. But I can do it easier with a guy. You can do it. You can absolutely. Software can override firmware. We do it all the time. Happens all the time. But it doesn't change the operative state of that person. End of story. Let's see. Vincent McLeod, thank you for that $20, my friend. Or 20 British pounds. Do I have to read this in my British accent? I recently, my blue-pilled buddies, my chums, girlfriend, 29, tried to bang me. Oh, tried to bang you. Oh, my stars and garters. But today, after finding out her boyfriend, or best friend, BFF, sorry, is my friends with benefits. Oh, very good. It sounds like you're doing well, Vincent. Why are women so ready to leave their girlfriends behind? The idea of doing so that so easily doesn't sit right with me. Well, again, that's a reproductive imperative. So if a guy you will be surprised what women will do behaviorally for a guy that her hindbrain sees as a ideal opportunity for consolidating or for optimizing hypergamy. So I use this joke all the time. He's the guy in the foam cannon party, right? Well, I was drunk, he was cute, and one thing led to another. Well, that's out here. That's the frontal lobes coming up with some sort of rationale. The hindbrain reason for that is because it was an opportunity she couldn't miss. That's why. And as such, women will do things that will change their nature with the girls that they know. So like a girl will get with a guy who's a really, really high value guy. She'll be happy to cut off friends, family, if that's the guy, if she's the guy, because that's how important reproduction is. Guys will do the same thing too. I think men and women do it, facilitate it in different ways. So when a guy is with a girl that he thinks, oh, she's the one, and that you want to know why like BPD girls are so effective at what they do, like they're isolating you. Like if you go and you look at what's happening with Meghan Markle and her husband, and Harry Markle. When you look at what's going on there, that's a classic BPD isolation move. And he's been isolated for a while. In fact, he's been crying about it and talking about it in articles. And I miss my family. I miss my friends. I miss my chums in the good old, UK. Because what she's doing is she's isolating that guy, and the guy and this is, I won't pick on Prince Harry because other guys will do the same thing too. Is they're happy to be isolated. They think that that's what they're supposed to do. Because I found the one. Why would I think of anyone else except for my one? I have to prove my love to my lady over and over again. And so you'd be surprised what people will do when their honey brain thinks that they've optimized hypergamy, or that the woman has optimized hypergamy in this sense. But when guys think they've got the one, or they think, I'll never get a girl as hot as this, and they'll kill themselves because they think that they'll never find a girl as good as that girl. Or Adam P, $10 says, Rollo, American dollars says, Rollo, at what point in evolution does hypergamy catch up to the rest of society? If homogenous relations are the best, I know what you mean by that. Why do women react so strongly in a primal way? When will they realize that teamwork is better? They won't. They won't do so unless environmental conditions change. And that was sort of the premise, I think, that a lot of people were maybe mistakenly thinking, and maybe not. I don't know, maybe now not. But when the pandemic hit and COVID was a thing, that was the first thing everybody said. Oh, well, finally, we're going to, us loyal, good, dependable provider guys are going to be the choice for women. Things didn't change radically enough. And it takes generations sometimes for them to do that. So it might be a generational thing, Adam. It might be something that, I think that guys make a mistake in thinking that women, like prior to the sexual revolution, like in World War II or World War I, or in the Victorian era or Civil War, whatever, they make the mistake in thinking that women weren't as hypergamous back then. No, they were. They were exactly the same degree of hypergamy that women are now. That the OnlyFans skank that you see on OnlyFans right now, put her back in a petticoat back in like 1865, 1863. And same girl, she just can't express it. The context, the social context is different. The generation is different. The buffers, the social buffers that buffer that. For men, it's the same thing too. We do that. In fact, we control men's sexual expression way more than we do women's today. And women will fight me on that. Like, oh, what do you mean? They think we're sluts. No, you have OnlyFans, you have social media. Think about how women worldwide have access to expressing themselves sexually and advertising themselves sexually. And no other generation, unprecedented exposure. Like, remember when Andy Warhol said that in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes? I'm thinking more like half an hour, maybe a little bit more than that. I don't know. I think he just got the time wrong. I think he was right about the concept. I think he didn't realize the internet was coming, but he was right, because that's what primarily women want. They want that attention. But I don't see the teamwork or the compatibility. Like I always say that men and women are better together than we are apart. And I still believe that. And I still think that we are complements. We are biologically, evolutionarily, spiritually, if you'd like, complements to one another. And we do ourselves no favors when we say that we're not, or we're autonomous, independent, things walking around that just happen to have a penis and a vagina. We're way more interdependent than we think that we are. And but right now, socially, environmentally, the incentives to change anything aren't there. Not yet. They might be in this future. There might end up being a new stigma that comes up that says if you're not together, then there's something wrong with you. Or there might be a new religion. There might be a new social impetus. Right now, I don't see that coming, and it's really hard not to think the world's going to end. With respect to gender relations, for sure, but it's hard not to think in like, well, where do we go from here? Like, this is the end. No, this is just a change. But I think that the only way that you really, like, people ask me this all the time. They'll say, well, how do we change this? How do we turn this thing around? Right? How do we get women to be women again and men to be men? And the answer is we don't. Something happens. Unfortunately, because nobody, like I was saying before, nobody changes their minds because Rollo Tomassi said, "Hey, read my book and you'll change your mind, and then suddenly you'll want to get married, and suddenly or suddenly you want to start spinning plates, or suddenly you'll live a better life." Nobody's going to do that. Nobody does it rationally. They have to be forced into it. There has to be some sort of incentive, and you'll see that throughout history. It bears that out. People change their behaviors and their morality and their mores and their social stigmas according to what's going on. I was reading this, and I'll stop with this one. I was reading this article about the difference between polygamy and monogamy. And I had never encountered this idea about monogamy before, is that monogamy, pretty much our natural state, our innate state was polygamous. So like Old Testament, patriarchs, like Abrahamic religions, polygamy was a thing, right? It was no big deal. That was just what we did. That was a relationship between men and women, and that's how it worked out. Even in Islam, in Judaism, and even in early Christianity. And if you go and you look at Asian cultures and other African cultures and stuff, polygamy has always been something. Polygyny, right? One guy, one powerful dude, one powerful alpha with a micro harem, let's say, unless the guy was like the emperor or the tribal chieftain, and then he had a lot of women, and usually guarded by eunuchs who had their dicks cut off so they couldn't because again, paternity, cut their dicks off because they might screw our women. That's how obsessive compulsive human males are about paternity. It used to be a big deal. So where did monogamy come from? How did that become a good idea? And I've always read that it was agriculture, like in pre-agricultural, like nomadic societies, when we were sort of transitioning from hunter-gatherer into an basically agrarian societies, that's where monogamy came from. And I think there's something to be said about that. But then I also saw that, with respect to Christianity anyways, and this is me doing research for book 4, that there was I don't want to, I forget, it might've been Emperor Constantine, I'm not sure, but it became normalized for a man to only have one woman as a result of military reasons. And I'm not really sure why that would be a thing, but it was if one guy died, I guess that meant there was 4 women who were like widows now, in rather than when you had one woman and one man together. Man dies, then there's only one woman that's without. And I know that, and I think I've talked to Abu American about this. I know that in Islamic culture, in Islamic tradition, the religion itself, you can have up to 4 wives. And what I've done, the research I've done, is one of the reasons why that is 4 is because there was attrition for men being killed in wars, like in whatever wars they were fighting in the Quran. I don't know, pardon me. But when those men were killed, that left 4 women, or that left more women widows. And so therefore the surviving men were allowed to have 4 wives. And it's not like a mandate, it's an option. Like I think Abu American was saying, most Muslims have 1 wife, right? Because if you can't support 2 or 3 or 4, it's probably best that you don't, right? Well, I looked at that and I thought, well, that's really strange, because I didn't realize it in terms of, because it's men who are going and fighting in wars and dying in wars. So it kind of makes more sense that we have socially enforced monogamy or religiously enforced monogamy, but yet we still have polygamous relationship, or polygamous or polygyny in religion, with the exception of Christianity. I don't know if Judaism ever had that after, say, Abraham or whatever. But what we do, honestly, is we kind of cater our religious beliefs, our religious. Remember, it's not a religious mandate; it's an option. For some Christian guys, like if you believe in Mormonism, you can have many wives. I don't know. And I just thought that was fascinating. I'm sorry. That's sort of an aside. John Doe says, "Wow, could women today break Patrice O'Neal's frame?" I think it just depends on the chick. I think what a lot of guys, it's funny is a lot of guys think of, and I like Patrice O'Neal. I think people need to understand, when Patrice O'Neal was out and he was doing his comedy thing, remember that comedy sometimes is necessary to deliver social messages. And I think he was ahead of his time, He saw the writing on the wall. When I think of Patricia O'Neill, I also think of Tom Likas, because Tom Likas was also before his time. Tom Likas, if he was starting right now and he did his own radio show, and he does have his own podcast, but Tom is kind of like ready for retirement. I think if not, he's already retired. And I have nothing but respect for Tom. He was actually one of the guys who I would attribute him with, I won't say red pilling me, but sort of making it entertaining to actually talk about things that I wouldn't otherwise have felt comfortable talking about, like the nature of women. Yeah, his delivery's rough, yes, but he's a showman. He's a radio host, so there you go. Patrice O'Neill, same thing, comedian, but ahead of his time. Rollo, Jordan Peterson read your books, and the alpha fuck side of hypergamy put him in rehab. Great show. Dropped that book already. Yeah. I know. I'm late, but and especially after learning my lesson today, and people always complain about like, oh, there's so many typos in it. There aren't any typos in the damn book now. In the first book, I'll tell you that, because I just changed damn near the whole book as a result of being put on notice, but being suspended. At least the Kindle book was suspended. Hopefully it'll be up within the next like 24 hours. So, but anyways, and I hate shit like that because it comes out of the blue. And usually it's because some dickhead said, hey, go and look over here. And you know who's doing that. So, let's see. John, that was a hairy butthole. John Doe again says, previous AFC improved myself. High SMV girls giving me attention, validation, ego, wants revenge from past girl who rejected me. How do I get rid of this ego? Well, the first thing you do is this, John Doe, is you go onto my website and you type in these letters or these words. Old Flame, New Game. That's an essay for you. I really should put that in a book because I get this question a lot. Like, oh, I really want to get revenge. Okay, there's no point in having revenge. I already talked about revenge. Go look at I talked about it like 2 weeks ago. I did a whole show dedicated to revenge. So the problem is guys live out revenge as like some sort of motivation for their lives. You don't live your life based on oh boy, I'm red pill and now I'm jacked. Now I'm going to get her. Why do you want to? It's the same principle as was Iron Rule Tomassi number 7, which is never root through garbage once you've dragged it to the curb. Also, never root through garbage once you've been dragged to the corner too. So don't go back. You will do far better by developing new relationships with new women who don't know you. That's the basis of it. But go read that one. It's called Old Flame, New Game. Nils Lindquist says a woman's late 30s decade-long relationship with a younger guy, completely subservient to him, no kids. So the guy's alpha and beta. Why are you guys throwing these like hypotheticals at me? A woman, here it is. Here's the hypothetical. A woman, late 30s, decade-long relationship with a younger guy, completely subservient to him, no kids. So is the guy alpha or is he beta? Well, she's probably with the guy. Let's see. So you said decade-long relationship with a younger guy. How much younger? 1 year? Oh, gotcha. Gotcha, bitch. Yeah, there. No, I don't know. Maybe I would need to have more detail on that to really give you anything to make your 59 SEKs, whatever that is, worthwhile. And again, don't get lost in subjective or ambiguous ideas when it comes to alpha or beta. Let's see. Last two here. Delam says, and in Islam, the dead man's wife is remarried into his family. They want to make sure the kids have a familial father figure. Okay, well, good. I do know that at least this is from what I've read anyways, is that the reason for polygamy being an option for Islamic men was because of war attrition, like dying in wars, and then the women didn't have enough guys. There were less men than there were women, and to perpetuate things, it made sense to have a man have a maximum of 4 wives. That's what I read. And Gus says, great voice acting. Of course. You're welcome. You don't like my British accent? I need to really work on that one. I could get a Cockney accent, I suppose. I could do a Wales accent, right? Wouldn't that be good? All right, guys, that's it. Thank you guys for watching today. Again, like I said, don't think of this as a takedown video. Think of this as educational. Again, I'm still trying to give you sizzle with the steak. And most important to me is the steak. I want you guys to be educated. I want you to walk away from this, or wherever you're listening to this right now. I want you to, when I click end broadcast here, I want you to think about these things and discuss them, man. Like well, have you heard about this protector instinct? You know, what do you think about the war on paternity? Like, have discussions, because none of this makes any damn difference. Like it will continue to be an emotional response. It will continue like you. So how do we change the world? Well, you're not going to do it through emotional responses and back and forth and getting off on indignation, this endless cycle of indignation, self-perpetuating cycle. You change you want to know how you change the world? With ideas. And the way you do that is you talk about those ideas. You develop them. That's how I came. How did I come to how did Rollo just entered into his brain? No, it's from years of having discussions on forums about this stuff. And then, of course, developing it and putting it into my own, putting my own ideas into it. But, it's like you get writer's prompts. Have you heard of that? Get a writer's prompt. Or if you're an artist, here's your artist prompt. Here's a little quick description of what I want you to draw or what I want you to write about. This is your writer's prompt. What are you going to do with this? Tell me what you do. Okay. All right. So hit the subscription button. Do all the things you're supposed to do. Put some money in my account. Go if you want to donate to the show. You can the Patreon. I take Patreon and Bitcoin, and all the address, everything, all the particulars are down there. Rule Zero Live is coming in October 2nd to the 4th. We finalized the speakers list. We'll probably have a full show with everybody on. We're gonna have to run it on Zoom, I think, but that's coming up October 2nd through the 4th in Las Vegas. More tickets will be available. If you hold a ticket already, then you're already in. We've added another day to it, plus another day of extracurricular activities. You'll have to, if whoever you follow, maybe you follow me. I'll let you know what I'm doing, what Ryan's doing, what Rich is doing. Rich is probably going to go drive cars or something. We're going to make this fun. It's not just going to be like, oh, we're going to sit there and listen to these guys talk behind a podium. Yeah, we're going to do that, but we're also going to go have a good time. And we'll have some private chats, and we might videotape them. We're going to have some poolside chats, like we're in wherever we go. I don't know what rooftop place we're going to go yet. I'm still deciding on where I want to do my thing. It might just be at the top of Planet Hollywood in a penthouse. If Sam Bada, who's in the chat today, still wants to do that, that'd be cool. So I want to do some extra stuff. We will. And again, so then the price is this. It's $9.99. I think are adding an extra 100 tickets. So we're going to give those primarily to the guys who are the new guys. That is Aaron Clary. Sterling Cooper is going to be there. We have John Fitch, and we have, Aaron Clary, John Fitch. Oh, and John Sonmez. I keep mispronouncing your name, John. Sorry. Sonmez will be the 4 other speakers on the other day. So myself, everybody you know from Rule Zero will be there, and then those guys. And also, it is the weekend of EDC, which is Electric Daisy Carnival. And that's like a rave fest or something like that. So you can go and try out your hot dude army skills on cute little raver girls that weekend. So have fun. Anyway, so that's coming up in October. We are planning. It'll be good. It'll be fun. It'll be enjoyable. Probably be the only vacation I get this year. Anyways, and book 4 is in the process right now. Again, going through edit round 3. And now I'm pulling stuff out because it's a little over big. So that's coming soon. I promise. I'm working as hard as I can. Okay, so that's it. Tell your friends. I can always use good book reviews on Amazon. If you need the link, it's again in the description. And that's about it for me. Oh, last but not least, I will be on the Masculine Geek Show tonight. That's at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. So I'll be on Masculine Geek tonight. If you want to see me in a casual light. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.